One of the sad realities of the world that we live in is that one day every single one of us will die. It's inevitable. It's going to happen to you whether you like it or not. And a few days ago, the world lost an absolute legend, a true pioneer, Mr. Akira Toriyama, the man who invented Dragon Ball. And as you may notice, I have a canvas of the amazing Goku, the main character of Dragon Ball, on my wall, as it's one of, if not the most influential anime character in the history of the world. Without Dragon Ball Z, without Dragon Ball, there's no Pokemon, there's no Bleach, there's no Naruto, there's no Attack on Titan, there's no none of that. It's all made possible thanks to the resilience of Mr. Toriyama. And on March 1st, at the age of 68, Akira Toriyama passed away. I believe it was from subdural hematoma. I'm not sure exactly what that is, but it was an illness, and he lived a very full life. And all of us can only hope to achieve even a fraction of what he did, because what he did changed the world forever, and it will never be the same again. I want to kind of just walk you guys through as to what his life was like, because Akira Toriyama didn't start writing Dragon Ball until he was 29 years old. He was older than me right now when he started to write that thing, and he changed the world completely to the point where the next 10 years of all manga was focused almost solely on Dragon Ball. Then when they made the anime just a few years after that, it took over the world. It was one of the first animes to ever be translated into multiple languages, and it was shown in countries all over the world. Also, to this day, let's be fair here, how many anime characters could actually fight and beat Goku in a fight? Very, very few, if any. That guy still destroys anybody in a fight. I'm talking vicious pummeling, left, right, Kamehameha, Ki, whatever he wants to do. He can have his way with almost every single anime character. So Mr. Akira Toriyama still is undefeated in that regard. I mean, the Z Fighters, who are Goku's friends, those guys are going to be kicking ass for a long time to come. But back to Mr. Toriyama. At age 29, he wrote Dragon Ball. Massive success. They sold hundreds of millions of copies, making him a multimillionaire. But until that point, he was, by most people's definitions, a failure, because he didn't have the success that he was going to have in the future. Not even a percentage of it. He was broke almost all the time, that he had to borrow money to buy cigarettes. He had to ask his mother for cigarette money. That's crazy. Yet he kept pushing, and he said that even though he was drawing all the time, the studios were rejecting him. They didn't want to publish his mangas. They didn't want to work with him. He said he realized that his drawing, his storytelling, his characters, everything about the manga itself was getting better. And in his own eyes, I can only imagine someone like him who is that obsessed with writing, that meticulous when it comes to his craft. He must be his own worst critic. And if he is liking what he's doing, then it's only a matter of time until the rest of the world and the studios say, okay, you know what? You got something here, man. And that, for him, was in the year 1984 when he was 29. One of the studios picked up the Dragon Ball manga. They published it, and literally within that calendar year, it was a giant success. So many people in Japan were all reading it. The anime was also amazing. Of course, if you watch the anime in this day and age, the animation is kind of lacking just because of how much better anime has gotten. But back then, it was the greatest work any studio had ever made, because they were pumping so much money into it, all because Mr. Toriyama did not give up on his dream of being a successful writer. I'm not someone who is very easily affected by fictional stuff. I prefer to take inspiration from real people and real works. Mr. Akira Toriyama is certainly someone like that, but his most influential character, Goku, is a fictional character that I absolutely take inspiration from. I have to imagine that, Mr. Toriyama, when he was writing Goku, he had to have been influenced by himself, because the act of never giving up, to keep continuing, to keep trying for years to get better at your craft while everybody else around you is telling you no. Well, that's the origin story of Goku. That's exactly what he was. No one believed in him. Everybody told him he was too small. He wasn't going to do anything worthwhile. And look now. Every single iteration of Goku there is a giant success. And that's because of the character of Goku and who he was. He was someone who just absolutely refused to give up no matter how hard the circumstances were. There was a Dragon Ball Z special some time ago where Goku is fighting Broly. And Broly is this supermassive, hulking behemoth that nobody can beat. Him and Goku are fighting, and Broly is whooping that ass. I'm talking just decimating him, rearranging his face, utter destruction. And Goku is just not stopping. He keeps coming back for another ass whooping. He gets his ass whooped, he comes right back. Gets his ass whooped, comes right back. And Broly is like, dude, just give up. I'm pummeling your face in. Just stop fighting me. Enough. Why won't you give up? And Goku is like, to be honest, I never learned how to. He never learned how to give up. And when you don't know how to give up, well, success is only a matter of time. That was the same thing for Mr. Toriyama, who refused to give up when the world told him they didn't want his new anime. They didn't want to watch it. And of course, Western audiences found this anime to be completely appalling, like they always do. You have a lot of media outlets who love to cry and bitch and moan. Of course, they love to find and draw negative headlines about it. So, when Dragon Ball Z was first coming out into the US, into the American market, getting dubbed into English, the anime, there was a very interesting newspaper article written in a very negative manner about it. It's this article right here where it says, kids are glued to a violent Japanese cartoon show, talking about how bad Dragon Ball Z is, and Dragon Ball Z is bringing impalement, strangulation to the after-school crowd, completely painting the entire show in a very negative spotlight and saying how it's going to be such a bad thing to happen to kids. There's even a part here where it says brutality is a staple. In one recent episode, beads of sweat form on the brow of a character named Vegeta as he is nearly strangled to death by an evil foe named Frieza. In another, Frieza uses the horns on his head to impale a good guy named Krillin through the chest. Of course, they gotta mention how Krillin died. Even these guys know Krillin never stood a chance. That guy just was addicted to dying. He loved to die. He existed to die. Whenever he died, it gave characters like Goku to be a hero and go save Krillin and bring him back from the dead. But of course, they're not even focusing on that. They're only focusing on how Frieza impaled Krillin. Back then, characters getting impaled with horns was considered too violent. Nowadays, you open TikTok and you see OnlyFans models shaking their booties around completely naked, and that's okay to be shown to a young audience though, right? But cartoon violence is where they draw the line, apparently. But what this article couldn't have predicted is that people would resonate with this cartoon. They would resonate with the good side of Dragon Ball Z because of how human Mr. Toriyama made these characters be. And again, without the success of Dragon Ball Z and what it meant for the mainstream audience, other animes that were successful would never exist today. You wouldn't have the Pokemon video games. Pokemon now is one of the biggest enterprises in the entire world, and that's only possible because Dragon Ball Z paved the way for it to be that way. If Mr. Toriyama had given up for any reason, he probably would have lived a good life, doing another job, doing whatever else, but we wouldn't have Dragon Ball Z. We wouldn't have Goku to look up to for inspiration whenever things are down, man. I'm thankful for what he did. I'm thankful Mr. Toriyama never gave up. I'm very thankful that he chose to continue the path. Thanks to him, individuals all over the world are able to get inspired with the writing and the characters that he made. And I want to thank Mr. Toriyama for doing what he did. He will not be forgotten about, not for at least 1,000 years, probably longer. Literally in the first paragraph, it says, Toriyama is regarded as one of the authors who changed the history of manga, as his works are highly influential and popular, particularly Dragon Ball, which many manga artists cite as a source of inspiration. If he hadn't done what he did, the other authors for other manga wouldn't have been inspired to create theirs. See what I mean? See the domino effect that this man started? It's incredible. He earned the 1981 Shogakukan Manga Award for Best Shonen Manga with Dr. Slump, and it went on to sell over 35 million copies in Japan. Dr. Slump was the first manga he had some success with. Obviously, nothing close to Dragon Ball Z's success, but that kind of gave him the confidence that he needed to go to the next level and that he can do this, even though he wasn't making much money from it. His next series, Dragon Ball, would become one of the most popular and successful manga in the world, having sold 260 million copies worldwide. It is one of the best-selling manga series of all time and is considered to be one of the main reasons for the period when manga circulation was at its highest in the mid-1980s and mid-1990s. Overseas, Dragon Ball's anime adaptations have been more successful than the manga and are credited with boosting anime's popularity in the Western world. Like I said at the beginning of the video, we will all die one day. We're all going to be gone. But to change the world like Mr. Toriyama did in the manner that he did, not only first with manga, making manga more popular, changing it in Japan, but then when the anime gets released, all of a sudden the world changes. The world latched on to his creation, and to this day, over 40 years later, Dragon Ball is stronger than it's ever been, and it's more popular than it's ever been, thanks to Mr. Toriyama's resilience. So, Mr. Akira Toriyama, rest in peace to you, sir, and thank you for changing the world and for who you are and for what you did. Yeah, I just want to talk about this. That's it for today. I'll see you next time.